And we are back. Welcome to another episode of the Oddsfathers Chill and Chat. Nikki G, Joey Briggs.
What up?
Thanks for joining us. Happy to be back again. We're a little late. We're running about a half hour late, so I apologize for that. It's my fault. We're still getting everything going. Technical difficulties for everybody who's here and everybody who plans on joining. Oh, 2 views. I was going to say, never mind. There's nobody here. 0. But we got 2 of you already.
Nice.
So thanks for joining once again. We had a cool show for you. So, Joe, break it down for us.
All right, so we're going to talk about baseball right now. Me and Nick are watching the Mets-Yankees game, so big Yankees fan, big Mets fan. So it's always a hope of ours that, we see each other in the World Series. That's a Subway Series. We haven't had it since 2000. No one else in America wants to see it, but great baseball for New York. And during the show,
I do disagree with that, though. I don't want to interrupt you, but I don't think no one else wants to see that. I think, I think it maybe in other sports, but Yankees is historic. There's Yankee fans everywhere, and the Mets are
no one hates the Mets.
But with the ownership and having a billionaire owner, and all of a sudden they went out, got a lot of pieces. I think there's some excitement to it.
Yeah. I mean, Cohen is spending money like no one else. That's the whole reason why the Juan Soto trade kind of happened. But in the show, we'll don't worry, we won't just talk about the Mets and the Yankees and New York sports. We'll talk about football the upcoming season, a little fantasy football, a little comparison of where I kind of have ranked guys compared to Yahoo and ESPN, considering those two are the biggest players in the game. I know Sleeper is making a pretty big push to be definite third. I don't see Sleeper knocking either one off, but it's always entertaining to kind of see where, I have players versus where they have, and we're going to talk a little bit about baseball. So it's going to be a lot of fun tonight.
All right, so I'd like to start off with, hold on, what did I miss? It's 2-2. What did we miss here? In the chat, if you saw what happened in the Yankee game while I was setting up and I missed it, and it's 2-2, what the hell did we miss? Looks like Gleyber Torres.
Damn.
Torres home run. Wow. Glad I took Mets first half. I literally said that. I have another chat with a bunch of buddies of mine, and they were like, oh, plus money for -1.5 with Scherzer on the mound. I'm like, the Mets bullpen, well, even though, that was Mets bullpen. Who's that, Mayhill? I was like, the Mets bullpen, after using their bullpen last night, you know what, as good as Scherzer is,
he only can go 6.
The Mets don't have a great bullpen, and they already used a few innings worth of it last night because Walker didn't give him a crazy outing. That's what worried me, and here you go, 2-2. But I'm going to lose my parlay that I put in anyway because the Blue Jays, with their ace on the mound against a Cardinals team missing their best players from their lineup, decided to do nothing. But what I wanted to talk about to open up is some betting strategies.
I like that. So, to kind of help out the average person who doesn't normally bet that much.
Right. So even though Joe and I are degenerates, and most people watching this I would assume are degenerates, there are a fair share of people I'm sure who are going to watch this back who are casual bettors. Was that safe to say, Joe?
I would probably say the average person is in here to kind of learn.
Right. So when it comes to baseball, I think I touched on this a little bit last week. I'm going to touch on it again today. There's definitely trends that you want to follow. It's unlike other sports. Sport like football that has, I was about to say 17 weeks, 18 weeks now, 17 games, bye week for every team. I definitely think that that's something where you can play, in terms of, okay, this is the matchup, team versus team, winning record versus losing record, better team on paper versus the, not better team on paper. But baseball, there's so much more than that. And I think this Mets game is a perfect example of that. As for tonight, I took, despite me being a Yankee fan, I took the Mets first half. And I took the Mets first half because Scherzer was on the mound. Scherzer had good numbers against the Yankees lineup, right? And the Mets don't have a great bullpen. So a lot of times the casual fan will just like to take a money line or take -1.5 or run line. But it's so important that sites like DraftKings, FanDuel, your local bookie, I'm sure, offer things like called first 5 innings. They even offer first 3 innings. They offer first 7 innings, where you're basically betting more on the starter or an opener or more on against a bullpen, maybe pro bullpen. You're betting on a team because you think, okay, even though their starter sucks, they got to go good bullpen. Maybe they come back in the game later. Maybe you want to live bet that way. Is that something that you do often, Joe?
I'm always going to look at the starting lineup. It's just a normal thing you got to look at. And then, dude, just like you said, you hit the nail on the head. You look at a pitcher that's going, ERA and everything. Yeah, like you already mentioned, Toronto. It may not work out, but, dude, 8 out of 10 times, if you go first half, the starter or the ace of a team is going to get you that at least one run to give you that half a run that you need in the first five.
Right. So that's my first part of this equation, right? And then the second part is looking at the lineups. So then another thing is looking at the lineups, like I just mentioned with Scherzer, his number against the Yankees, etc. When you look at the lineups, you can easily go do your research. I mean, that's why we're here. That's why we give out free picks almost every day. And I give out analysis now on my picks. If you haven't look back at the videos. Make sure to stay tuned for the upcoming videos. I give analysis for this reason. Most handicappers, whether it's Twitter, whether it's Instagram, whether it's friends of yours. I mean, listen, those are the communities, Discords, VIPs that maybe give you a synopsis of their pick, right? But most people will just put out a pick and say, tail this one, and it'll say, Yankees first half, Mets first half, Rays first half, whatever team it is. If it's football, Dolphins, money line. But they don't really tell you why. They just tell you how many units to put on it. And I love breaking it down as to why. And there's a million reasons why you're going to take what players you decide to take. But the most important thing I like to look at in baseball is lineups, right? Because 162-game season, as you know, Joe, you're a fan of a team that goes through injuries, etc. Unfortunately, the lineup is not the same every day. So things you want to look at are, A, who's in the lineup? So tonight, it didn't work out for me. Prime example that anything can happen. But 162-game season, you look at guys like Goldschmidt, etc. on the Cardinals, their best players, guys who might win the MVP this year. We're not playing. We're not playing. Then they're on the road going against the team's ace. So that would lead you to believe, okay, they don't really have an advantage, right?
Now, they have a disadvantage. Huge.
The money line is minus 280, so I went run line minus 1.5. That way, not overpaying the juice. But the point is, on top of that, there were players who were in that lineup against guys when you didn't have career numbers against them. So you want to look at those things. When you look at a lineup, A, look who's in the lineup for that team. See, are their stars out? If they are out, if they aren't out, the players who are in that lineup, what are their numbers against the opposing pitcher? Are their numbers low batting average? How many strikeouts they have? You'll see guys who are, 1 for 7 lifetime against a particular pitcher, and they have 5 strikeouts. The particular pitcher they're facing is a heavy strikeout type of pitcher. You want to analyze matchups so much to gain the best ground that you can on any bet, because you can't just look, okay, this team's 51-30 playing a team that's 35-50. Well, how did they win those 35 games? Was their ace on the mound? Did they have a better lineup in those games? I mean, it sounds elementary, but people don't do this.
What you just brought up, I think, is the biggest thing that you have to look at. You could have a pitcher having a great year. Let's say, he's 10-3. But, dude, maybe 2 of those losses are against the exact same team. And a lot of people just look, oh, dude, it's a slam dunk. You got to go. No, dude, you got to do a little more research. It's only going to take you a few more minutes to actually do the research to make the pick opposite of what, let's say, Vegas wants you to do. And just some people don't put in the time. Like you said, some people just want to trail a pick, and they're not getting better at gambling or betting or anything like that. It's just, oh, okay, $50, $100, or 1 unit, 2 units, whatever your unit actually is. And, dude, it's just a cycle.
The goal is eventually that you watch us enough and learn enough of us or whoever it is that then you learn your nuances to have your edge or your spin you put on why you make your picks, and maybe not rely on other people for their picks. But relying on people for their picks is not a bad thing if you're new to the, there's still things I learn, and I've been a complete degenerate for years and years now, trying to analyze every little thing about every possible bet, right? That's just what happens. But that's it's just kind of how it goes. But with that being said, that's those 2 things. Looking at the starting pitcher and maybe taking first starting pitcher bullpens and maybe taking a first half or a full money line as opposed to something else, right? That's one aspect of it. Then looking at who's in the lineup, what their career numbers are against another team is another, factor. But then another huge thing for me, and I know that you do this too, Joe, is I like to look at the team that's home or away. If you're taking a run line, huge minus 1.5 is so important. If you're taking a team minus 1.5, meaning favorite, but let's say they're super favorite, great pitcher against shitty pitcher, great team against bad team. You're like, listen, I can't lay minus 300. I don't mind, laying minus 135, minus 140 on the run line and taking that. Well, here's the thing: are they the home team? Because now they might only get 8 chances to bat instead of 9. Because Because if they're up by 1, then I'm betting that 9th inning to get that second at bat. Huge. I can't tell you how many games you and I both.
I was going to say, dude, last week, 2 weeks ago, when we were doing this podcast, right after this was done, or this YouTube video, right after this, I think it was the Cardinals. Who was it? Where they went into overtime or extra innings. Sorry, I'm an idiot. They went into extra innings, and dude, right away, you're like, dude, the only way that this can hit is if the away team goes nuts, and you have to hit a home run. That's the only way. That only 8 opportunities. You have to look at those factors when you're placing that bet. First 5 for life.
First 5s for life, baby. Love those first half plays based on the starting pitcher, based on the home team, whatever. So, but yeah, that's another factor. The -1.5, +1.5. That's a strategy that I, always love to talk about. And we brought that up briefly on the last one as well, but we weren't so focused on it. So that's another thing.
I am a big better on the first 5. It's just the smarter move. The better team should 9 out of 10 times be up in the first 5. If the ace is on the mound, or if they're, everyone's healthy, dude, anything can happen after that.
There's always outliers, right?
Yeah, but look at the Mets. You win, perfect example, and we'll always do this. You win Scherzer, first 5, awesome. But let's say any one of our buddies that are Mets fans that win it -1.5, no, it's not looking too good right now.
And that's exactly the reason why I went that. And I said that to, friends of mine who I had this not argument with, but basically why I said that I took the bet that I did. But so that's another one as well. And then another factor, and this is a huge one that you don't see a lot from the handicappers. You're following these handicappers and they're telling you why they took the bets, even if they are giving you a reason why. Or maybe they're giving you a bet that lost. And you're like, how did that lose? This applies not just to money lines, run lines, who's pitching. This goes, well, who's pitching will play another factor as well. And I'll bring that up again after. We're going to go through a lot of these points, right? Because we usually do these streams for an hour. And I want to give you actual food for thought to take. I don't want to take up an hour of your time saying, hey, did you see the game the other day? Yeah, that was great. I want something of substance, right? Just like when Joe goes off on fantasy football, he's not telling you, I like this guy because he plays for the Vikings. No, he tells you, even though I'm a Vikings fan, this is why I do or don't like him, right? Yeah. So I'm getting a little adamant about this, but it's so important because there's way too many people out there who give out picks that aren't even looking up these subtle things that make a big factor. Look up the field conditions and the weather, right? If you have a stadium, right, that's a pitcher's ballpark and the wind's blowing in. So you have a certain stadium, right? Obviously some of those states, let's say you're playing in the Midwest in some of those ballparks, right? Where, the Miami Marlins Stadium, in most aspects of it, is a pitcher ballpark. Not a lot of home runs go out there. What about the Oakland A's, right? The Oakland A's, even though some part it's easy to hit a home run out, there's so much foul territory that's playable. So that playable foul territory, instead of the ball going foul, it's a fly out. It's a pop-up. Those particular stadiums, that those games are going on in, if the wind is blowing in, right, and you have a pitcher who's a fly ball pitcher, that's something that you want to look at and say, okay, I won't take the team total or the run total anymore at this point, because now, as good as these pitchers are, as bad as these pitchers are, maybe there's not going to be as many runs scored because it's 15 miles an hour blowing in a stadium with dimensions that are very pitcher friendly.
Already benefit the pitcher. There's no, unless you're slapping that ball into the outfield every single hit, which you don't see ever.
And then coercively on the other end of that, you'll have games where you'll have a batters friendly ballpark, right? There's some ballparks that are super batters friendly, you know what I mean? And you look at Boston and the Green Monster. Yeah, they call it the Monster because it's high, so it's maybe a little hard to hit a home run sometimes. But the wall's 310 and it's about 330 or so to like left center, right? So you can, if you're a righty batter, so let's say you're a righty power batter playing in Boston, and you have a pitcher on the mound who's a fly ball pitcher, and you look at the weather and okay, the wind is blowing out 10, 15 miles an hour. That righty batter who already has power, who already has however many home runs or however many extra base hits, OPS on the year, he's going to smash the ball off that wall or hit a home run maybe anyway, even if they're in Boston's lineup and any other team who has a batter's ballpark. Now you're playing another factor where that ball's going to go further, or it's a fly ball pitcher where he's used to getting outs, putting them in the air. Now those outs will be home runs. They won't be outs. It's another huge thing to look at.
See, that's why I always liked Citi Field when it was first built because it was such a pitcher's ballpark.
And then they moved the fence in a little bit. Now it's about even keel. It's not
Yeah.
still not a batter's ballpark, but it's definitely not a big pitcher's ballpark
No,
anymore.
dude, they added an entire area that took out like 15, 20 feet.
The black fences.
Yeah, on the right side.
And that's like another thing. Like you look at a team, their lineup. See, are they when they're facing a certain pitcher, or is their lineup lefty or righty friendly? Yankee Stadium, left center field, even parts of right center. Honestly, pitcher friendly, but the short porch and right, straightaway right field, and like almost right center. Right. Same thing with where the Red Sox play the pesky pole. If it's straightaway to right, you could get it over easy. If you get it to right center's crazy deep in Fenway.
Oh yeah, they have that odd looking field.
Pesky pole. So those are things to look at now. Be like, oh, a lineup is coming in that has a lot of left-handed batters, and there's a short wall in that stadium in right field. Factor those things in. Those come into my plays. Those comes out to the picks I give because now a ball that maybe would be a fly out. Look at Houston. The Astros are another perfect example of right field and left field are tiny, very tiny. Listen, straightaway center and right center, super deep at Minute Maid Park, but straightaway right and straightaway left, and even left and parts of right center are super shallow, right? So look at those power bats. Are they going up against? Is a righty going up against a lefty pitcher there? Super important to look at because now maybe that fly ball is a home run. And like I brought up before with a fly ball batter, there's a lot of ground ball pitchers, right? You look at a guy like Marcus Stroman, he's a ground ball pitcher. You look at guys who throw sinkers a lot. A sinker ball is meant to be ground balls. If they're playing a lineup that's home run heavy, I love a sinker ball pitcher because as long as he hits his spots, then chances are they're going to swing and miss at the sinker, or they're not going to hit a fly ball when they're home run batter. They're going to hit on the ground and be a ground out.
I think we have a baseball signed by Marcus Stroman, actually.
We got a story about that for another time. Yeah, so that plays a factor. Now, if you're a ground ball pitcher and you look at a lineup and they're playing a specific lineup, let's say it's Cleveland, the Guardians. The Guardians, Jose Ramirez had a lot of home runs, but a lot of those guys in that lineup are a lot of average hitters, right? They hit a lot of, balls for average. There's other lineups that are like that, right? Maybe the Dodgers, the Yankees, certain teams that come to mind for home run hitters. No, but there's other teams that hit the ball for average. They just do. And the teams that hit the ball for average, if they hit it on the ground, they're not just going to pull into a shift or ground into a shift. They'll find the hole and get the base hit. So now, if you have a lineup with a bunch of guys batting 300 who aren't fly ball hitters, you don't want to bet on them. So there's so many factors that go into putting a bet in other than favorite, underdog, good pitcher, bad pitcher. And if you're able to take all that, you take the weather increment, you take the stadium increment, you take the first five or the bullpen, you take the starting pitcher, you take the ground ball, if you take all those elements and you bet on those every single time, it sounds like a lot of work, but you're going to win most of your bets.
It's just a smarter move. Right now, I'm actually looking up to confirm the easiest ballparks to actually hit, and you hit the nail on the head with 3 of them.
Right? I look at Yankee Stadium to right field, super easy. Fenway and Minute Maid Park to left field, super easy. Nationals, I think the Nationals have a ballpark that's very batter friendly.
Yeah, I'll give it to you. I never looked at the weather when it comes to baseball games that I put money on, but I do the exact same thing with football. People just sometimes don't look at the weather, and it's crazy how much it can actually affect all games. Not basketball, but
Right, but so even it works in that. So you're talking about football betting, and you're big into that, Joe. Like, explain how you'll look at something that's okay. This is a team that's run heavy; they're not pass heavy. So in a game that's going to be rainy, they're not going to rely on their quarterback to throw into the wind, into the rain, interceptions. They're going to ground and pound the football.
You already brought Seattle, New England, Chicago, Packers. Dude, you can follow all the way from Boston, all the way across America to Seattle. Dude, those are the worst stadiums to play in as soon as November hits. And you'll just have people come in that, quarterbacks or wide receivers, dude, they just can't put up good numbers in 10-degree weather. It doesn't matter. So what do? They have to rely on the run game. And, dude, some of these overs are just crazy in these games. 52.
Right.
50. 53 and a half, 54, 55. Dude, easy unders. Easy. Just, I don't know. It's just
I couldn't agree more. So it factors into not every sport, because weather doesn't really play a factor in a hockey or a basketball game. But
sometimes those hockey, they turn down the air
let me tell
conditioner.
you something about that Zamboni in Edmonton. You know what I mean? Like, but seriously, it makes sense. So those are a lot of the points I want to touch on with that. And now, what I want to do is not hand it over to Joe, because I'm gonna have plenty of input on here. But we always talk about Joe as a fantasy football guru. He just is. So we have a little treat in store for you. We're going to talk about fantasy football, and we're going to talk about the pros and cons of using Yahoo versus ESPN and whatever you use. And we're going to talk about sleepers and maybe the opposite, people who are overhyped.
Yeah. So real quick, so I decided to write everything down just so you guys know that I'm not just, pulling names out of a hat. So what I ended up doing was going to ESPN and Yahoo. Everyone else can do this, but I just did it so you only have to listen to me. You don't have to actually research. And I wrote down the top 22 not prospects, but NFL players at their ADP on the different sites. So it is actually crazy. So on Yahoo, right off the bat, we'll just go top 10, just nice and easy. They go Taylor, Eckler, Cooper Kupp, Derrick Henry, which is very surprising at 4, Dalvin Cook, Christian McCaffrey at 6, Najee Harris, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, Joe Mixon is the top 10. Just crazy to me, because I don't think Mixon deserves to be in that conversation. I think Derrick Henry is way too high, and I would definitely put some respect on Justin Jefferson and Christian McCaffrey's name. But then you look at ESPN. They go Jonathan Taylor. He's consensus, 101. Okay, I have Christian McCaffrey just because I believe that he had, 2 crazy injuries, and he's going to come back healthy. He lost some weight, less muscle, so hopefully his body can handle it.
Also, Baker Mayfield is a guy who doesn't throw the ball a lot. He throws the ball when he needs to. If not, he likes handing it off and being a play-action third-down guy.
Yeah.
And if he is a play-action third-down guy or is going to be throwing the ball, he likes to check it down a lot too. He only airs it out when he needs to.
Dude, Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb have both been RB1s. I think before Kareem Hunt got hurt last year, which is just another fact that we won't actually talk about, but I thought it was interesting, he was RB11 up until week 7 or 8 last year before he got hurt. So right now, Kareem Hunt, I'm pretty sure, is going RB33. So just food for thought. Think about it, how someone in the last 3-4 years can finish as the top 20 running back, and this year he's now running back 33. But ESPN went ahead and went Jonathan Taylor, 1, Kupp 2, McCaffrey 3. There's really no argument there because I have McCaffrey at 1 and Kupp at 3, so top 3 are the same. Eckler, King Henry, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, Najee Harris, Devontae Adams, and then this is Dalvin Cook.
Yeah, I don't understand that at all. I want to get to this quick.
Dalvin Cook was the number 2 pick last year when Christian McCaffrey, Dalvin Cook. So now,
listen, they have his injuries issues as well. So if you think that McCaffrey has his injury issues, so you want to, and people are still calling him pick 1 or maybe pick 2, but you're going to list Cook that low?
Yeah.
Joe's got something to say real quick, Joe, not to interrupt you. But this is an interesting point. McCaffrey isn't going to be top 10, but he's also not done. Above average, but won't be at the top. Now, usually people have 1 of 2 takes here, and it's the opposite of Joe. Usually people have, listen, it's a freak injury thing. You know what I mean? You can't bank on him being injured. When he's healthy, he's the best or one of the best. Or people are going to say he's not going to stay healthy. You can't trust him anymore. So he's going to be average or not going to give you much. So we have a take here that says the opposite.
Yeah,
he's not going to be top 10.
I don't mind it. See, it's just as far as points per game, and this is just facts, no one has more points per game than Christian McCaffrey in the last 3 years. Even last year, Derrick Henry, before he got injured, was 2 points below Christian McCaffrey's average points per game. So now, if he's going to be healthy, which, listen, I completely understand if someone's not going to draft him because of that reason. But if you're able to play Christian McCaffrey for, let's say it's 8, 9, 10, 11 games, and he gets you those 25 to 30-point games, you're winning at least half of those games, probably more, because someone didn't get to draft Christian McCaffrey. And when he's not playing, and this is the exact same reason why I love Dalvin Cook, when he's not playing, it's not like you're getting a 0. you're going to be able to play another running back on your team. So right off the bat,
If he plays, he's never having a bad game.
No.
He's just not. He never does.
That's the facts. So like that's just what it is.
But the injury could be a fact. Let's say he misses 3 or 4 games this year, and he's let's say he misses 4 games, right?
Yeah.
And he plays 13 games. If those 13 games, 11 he's elite, 2 he doesn't have great games, then 4 he could end up. Joe Russo could be right.
He could be RB11, which is true because he didn't play those 4 games.
So
which once again, I have no problem with that just because I get to play another running back those 4 weeks that he's not there. And if Christian McCaffrey's on the field, no one's better than him in fantasy football.
So it's kind of a hot take, but also like kind of isn't a hot take because a lot of people either think he's boom or bust, not outside of the top 10, but like 11, which this kind of states.
I don't mind
that makes it like a hot take, but I don't mind it for 2 reasons. One, it's possible, right? We haven't seen him in a while.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And yeah. I mean, listen, I think Cook's O-line is a little better than McCaffrey's.
I think the Vikings are going to surprise people with the fact that they're not going to run Dalvin Cook between the tackles. KOC likes the outside. They like the swing pass. You know, if he does run between the guards, tackles, anything along those lines, they actually have a top 5 run blocking team. So I mean, that's just how it is. PFF grades them as a top 5, top 10 run blocking team.
They're better at run blocking than pass blocking. Their offensive line isn't great, but it's better for run blocking. Whereas
they can't pass block.
The Panthers can't do either.
No.
Although they did draft the last 2 years offensive line, so we'll see.
But there's a handful of players that I think are absolutely crazy. So, like, I understand I just read off the top 10. Like, my top 10 is McCaffrey, Taylor, Eckler, Cooper Kupp, Dalvin Cook, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, Derrick Henry, DeAndre Swift, which I didn't name, and CeeDee Lamb.
I put Mixon ahead of Lamb.
You would put Mixon ahead of Lamb?
Mm-hmm.
Which I have no problem with. Like, listen, if you want that running back, let's say, and I'll always bring this up.
Joe Mixon proved last year that he finally had one of those years where he wasn't like a bust.
Yeah.
I mean, they went to the Super Bowl, and obviously they've gotten kind of rid of his backups, which were, if he was healthy, were eating into his carries.
But Chris Evans, not a factor.
Right. You know what I mean? It's not like you have to worry about Giovanni Bernard and who was the other guy?
Piron.
Right. Yeah. You don't really worry about those guys as much anymore.
No, and also I'll always get into conversations or arguments with people where I rank this kind of as a 2 running back, 3 wide receiver league, or 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, and 2 flexes, which at least one of those flexes is going to be a wide receiver. I think wide receivers are just more important to the fantasy football team because they're less likely to get injured. And if you're playing in a half point or full point PPR, I do not play in any leagues that are standard, thank God, because that would change my rankings. That would change how I look at people. That would probably put Derrick Henry in my top 3, just because he's going to get the touches. He's not going to get a point for reception. It is what it is. But the few names that I thought were absolutely crazy were the fact that Yahoo had Deebo Samuel.
This is out of control.
Deebo Samuel at 21st, which I'm okay with that. If you want to take a second-round flyer on Deebo, I have him at 23. It's just really tough because you don't know what Lance is doing. You don't know if that contract's going to be finished. So I'm right there. I get that.
And you have him at, and not you, I'm saying you as them.
Yeah.
They have him ranked that high based upon him coming off the best possible season he could have had. But they lost 2 offensive linemen, right? Yeah. I mean, they do have Trent Williams?
Trent Williams, they just signed again.
Right. So Trent Williams is huge. But they lost Layden Tomlinson, and they lost 1 other offensive lineman. And you don't, if Jimmy G's not going to be quarterback, I mean, you don't know for sure. Listen, everyone loves the potential of Trey Lance, but you don't know what's going to come.
You don't know if they're implementing the RPO to highlight Deebo.
And Deebo even said he doesn't want to be such a big running.
So if
he's not, you're taking away more of his points than he was receiving.
Deebo Samuel had 8 rushing touchdowns last year. That's not happening again. 8. That's absolutely crazy. But why I brought Deebo up is because ESPN has Deebo ranked the 13th player to draft. As far as that's concerned, that's ridiculous. I think if someone grabbed Deebo with the first pick in the 2nd round, I would laugh so hard because you're literally drafting him where he finished last year with 400 or 500 rushing yards, 8 rushing touchdowns, literally the focal point of the offense. Listen, Elijah Mitchell is back and healthy. I'll throw in quotes. They drafted another running back in the third. So Trey Sermon is gone. He's completely done. You don't know what Trey Lance is going to do. If IU can stay out of the doghouse, then that's a huge thing. And can Kittle stay healthy?
Right. If Kittle stays healthy, he's going to eat into some of those targets that Debo got because Kittle wasn't on the field.
At the top of where they could. In the first 2 rounds, you have to go upside. And I don't see Debo repeating what he did last year. Like I said Debo might end up being a 3rd-round draft pick, and I kind of stand behind that. Right now, I have him in the 2nd round, right there at the end of the 2nd round. But if Debo kept falling, let's say I'm at the end of the 3rd, I'm probably going to end up taking him. But that's just because if I throw him as my wide receiver 2, because it's the 3rd round, I don't mind that boom or bust potential where he might get injured, might not get injured. But a few players that I think are unbelievable values as far as Yahoo and ESPN go, and Nikki G hates one of these guys. So
I don't know what he's going to say. So we didn't talk about this.
Yahoo, I just dropped him 3 spots because of the addition of Julio Jones. But Mike Evans Yahoo has as the 23rd player drafted. That's embarrassing. Okay, that's dude. You're talking about a guy who there's almost 3,000 yards gone from his team and 20+ touchdowns. They added Russell Gage and Julio. Unless both of them are going to be 1,000-yard receivers and 10 touchdown guys, the rest is going to Mike Evans. You don't know when Godwin's coming back. There is no Gronk. There is no Antonio Brown. Fat Leonard, you don't know what he's actually going to be. There is no more Rojo. Like, they got rid of Gino Bernard. So unless the rookie's going to come in and take all the passing touchdowns and all the receptions away and all the receiving yards, I just don't see a world that we live in. Barring an injury, Mike Evans doesn't finish as the top 6, 7 receiver, and to be drafted at 23 overall behind a whole bunch of guys that I already have concerns about, like Debo, I'm just not going to do it.
And I agree 100%. I wish I could argue with you here and make like, you know what I mean? Like, obviously it's better for convo when we have stuff to argue about. And we had a little back and forth before, but I agree with that. You know
See, I had Mike Evans as my 9th guy, and I had to drop him. I said 3. Yeah, I did drop him to 12. So right now I'm still having a hard time dropping him more, even with the Julio edition. But Julio didn't do much at Tennessee. I understand, Tannehill's no Brady, and, he was injured for most of the year. But, dude, best case scenario, Julio goes for what? 750, 6 touchdowns?
Even if Brady shows that he's not completely washed up and he has a good year for Julio at this age, if he could stay healthy the whole year with having Godwin and Evans and everybody else, like, there's too many people who have to touch the ball. He's still old and still a little bit washed up, even if Brady brings him back to life. People are going to reach on him because he's a buck now.
Yeah. And, dude, listen, I understand this is not you're actually doing it. You're replacing Godwin with Julio for the time being, and you're replacing Antonio Brown with Russell Gage. And you're putting Cameron Brate in it might end up actually being my boy Kyle Rudolph in for Gronk. It's just not going to work. I want to actually see, like, this is where Brady has to get creative. This is like those old school Patriots days when Gronk didn't play or Gronk was injured and they had no one else. And Brady still, got it done most weeks. 9 out of 10 times. I've said it like 4 times, but it is what it is.
I didn't want salmon. Said it 4 times.
But the one guy that I couldn't believe on ESPN rankings that actually fell out of the 2nd round, he's the 29th player taken. And this is where Nikki G and me disagree, which this is actually going to bring good conversation, is Saquon.
Oh, you're saying that we didn't have good conversation so far?
Good argument.
Does actually bring good conversation? Next week, tune in when it's just me, no joke.
Saquon Barkley at 29th overall.
Hate him.
He is in the middle of the 3rd round.
Hate drafting him.
I have Barkley at 14. Okay. And just like my McCaffrey pick, okay, the Giants, the biggest upgrade the Giants made was getting rid of Joe Judge, Jason Garrett, and Freddie Kitchens. Bro, that's actually that's awful. You might have the 3 worst offensive minds possible in the NFL.
I agree with that.
Literally hindering, and I don't think Daniel
But
Jones.
that's not the only reason Saquon didn't. I'll let you go on. That's not the only reason Saquon had bad seasons.
I don't think that none of their receivers were healthy. Even Kadarius Toney literally played nothing. And when you ask Saquon to run between the tackles, Saquon's never been. You go high school, you go college, you go NFL. Saquon is not comfortable running in between the tackles. Dude, that was my biggest knock against him coming out when he was, when he got drafted by the Giants. I was like, dude, he doesn't trust his offensive line, and it always worked in high school and college where, you're a freak athlete, you don't have to trust your offensive line, bounce it to the outside, and your legs are the size of some of these, white cornerbacks that you're running over, so you're okay. But, dude, fast forward a few years, and I just listen, go up some. If Saquon can stay healthy, and you can't project injuries, guys. That's why J.K. Dobbins is still in the 4th, 5th round. That's why Cam Akers is still in the 4th, 5th round. If you're actually
when Joe's done, I'm going to tell you why I agree with other Joe.
Yeah,
Joseph Russo. Why I agree with him.
Oh, Barkley on that. And listen, if you don't trust him, and that's fine, and you let him pass, at what point? And Nick, I'll ask you: at what point would you feel comfortable taking? Would you feel comfortable taking Barkley at 29 if you were on ESPN?
No.
No.
So if
he has to slip into the 4th round for you,
here's my thing, and I'm kind of on the side of Joseph Russo with this one. So Joseph Russo wrote to us earlier about McCaffrey thinks. Now I'm not saying I agree that McCaffrey's not going to be top 10. I don't agree with him with that. Yeah. I think McCaffrey's going to have a great year and bounce back and be a top 5 running back. But I see why he would say that, and I listen to his point. But if you're someone who believes that and a lot of people believe this way, they're not as high on McCaffrey because of the injury issues, right?
Yeah.
And the offensive line, not that great. Well, if those are your 2 issues, wow, Mets have a runner at third base with 1 out, and they could sacrifice him in to win the game.
But that 1.5 doesn't hit. Going back
to my point. And then my first 5 hit. So, but all right, so let me get back onto the Barkley train. So if those are your concerns with Christian McCaffrey, then my concern with Saquon Barkley is both of those things aren't mutually exclusive, right?
No, they're identical.
They're identical.
Identical.
But here's the thing that's even worse. Saquon doesn't have the amount of body of work and good seasons that Christian McCaffrey has.
1, 2, and 2 bad seasons. So, yeah, he actually is split down the middle.
He had 1 good year. That's it. Then he had a flash of a couple good games, got injured. Then he had another year, didn't do anything. Another year, didn't really do anything. / was injured again, different injury. So that's where we go with Saquon. So my point is, and I look at all the other running backs too. It's just a matter of what I can draft ahead of him.
So I'll have this. A few of the running backs that I have in that range of 29. Okay, because I'll actually list off the running backs in order that I have.
List the running backs and/or hold on.
Yeah.
List the running backs and/or receivers, any flex position players that are behind Saquon at 29 that I could draft instead of him.
Okay.
List them.
DJ Moore.
Drafting him instead. He's a PPR machine. Just for that reason.
Keenan Allen.
Baker Mayfield. Keenan Allen, 1,000% drafting him over
Mike
Saquon.
Williams.
Probably, yeah. If I like Keenan Allen.
David Montgomery.
100%. With a rookie quarterback, they're going to pound the rock.
Oh, second year. Fields.
Yeah, but he's basically a rookie. He's basically a rookie quarterback. He didn't play much last year.
Alvin Kamara.
1,000% drafting him over Saquon.
But with the concerns on what's going on, then that's why Alvin Kamara right now is in the 3rd round for me. We don't know what's going to actually legally happen to Alvin Kamara. If you get Alvin Kamara before Barkley, and Alvin Kamara's trial gets pushed to 2023, you just hit a home run. You just hit an RB1 in the middle of the 3rd round. So I don't disagree with that. I just until that trial is actually set, I have Kamara at 33.
Keep going.
Elliott.
1,000%. I'm drafting Elliott before Barkley, and I'm just drafting Pollard later on as a handcuff.
ETN.
No, I'm drafting Barkley over ETN.
Cam Akers.
I am probably drafting the way Cam Akers bounced back so fast from an injury and then looked good in the playoffs and the Super Bowl. I'm drafting Cam Akers over.
So I read a whole bunch of stuff actually on the Achilles injury. It's 18 months to have explosivity back in your actual Achilles. So that's why he was able to come back, but he looked so slow. So I do think now
he still had some good games. He still had some good games, explosiveness. So that's even more. That kind of adds to my point. I would say he played that good without having his explosiveness back. Imagine what he's going to look like with it.
But in my defense,
Sure.
Cam Akers has never had a good year. He had an okay year and an injured year. So that's just and then next running back is AJ Dillon, my boy. So listen,
I'm taking Saquon over AJ just because AJ's still not the starting running back.
And the next running back I have, this is the running back dead zone. It's pretty rough. I actually go 15 picks without another running back. Josh Jacobs.
Jingleheimer Schmidt.
Yep. And all the Christmas songs.
Yeah, I would still take Saquon over him. But my point is, see, like even if you agreed with only half of the people that I said I would take over Saquon, then Saquon's ranked too high, and Joseph Russo has you're not saying you can't draft him for that reason, right?
Yeah.
That's just one. Walk off.
Yeah.
But I'm not saying that you can't draft.
Do you see a world where Saquon finishes as a top 5 running back if he stays healthy?
In the absolute most boom category of who he is, if he's healthy, with a good offensive line, with good play calling, with Daniel Jones not being instant, like everything has to align, and fucking Mercury's got to be in a retrograde for Saquon to be a top 5 running back. And now he has the raw talent that it could happen, but injuries, offensive line, play calling, quarterback, division, blah blah. I can't do it. I can't. Can you really?
Yeah, I would. If he's there, Yahoo has him. Where does Yahoo have him? I guess Yahoo doesn't even have him on their top 20. So
Mets won by 1 run, by the way. So I call that one to the fucking T, baby.
Yeah, I think if I'm in the, let's say, and me personally, depending on where I'm drafting, I'm probably only going to take 3 or 4 running backs, maybe 5 in the first round. So that means my first round draft pick is a receiver. Dude, depending on what receiver or running back falls to me in the second, if I go receiver, and I know this is going to handicap myself, but if I can go in the 3rd round, let's say Barkley and Cam Akers, my team is high volatility.
Your team is, if everything goes right, you're winning the whole thing.
Yes. And listen, but that's now where in the 5th round, maybe I grab another receiver. And dude, I just grab a handful of those boom running backs that you don't know. Let's say I do grab look at my list. Look at my list. Let's say I go I'm in the 70s now. Let's say I go a Cornelius Patterson.
Cornelius.
Okay.
AJ, RJ, CJ, NJ.
Let's say I go with Chase Edmonds, a Kareem Hunt. Let's say Kareem Hunt gets traded. That's huge. Okay. Let's go Tony Pollard, like you said. Elliott may not play all 17. So let's say Tony Pollard can play 4 and he has some standalone value. Dude, you can take these shots on all these. James Cook, Ken Walker. I just feel like in the
Madison.
late, what?
Madison.
Alexander Madison, Ramondre Stevens. All these reports, Ramondre Stevens is going to take over the workload during the season. Well, until he does, it's all beat writers talking. Rashard Penny, is he actually going to be the RB1 when healthy? Who knows?
Which, by the way, if everyone didn't know yet and they didn't hear the news today, Chris Carson officially retired. Neck injury was too much for him.
Dude,
believe, right?
Yeah, when we're talking about guys that I don't think I ever won a championship with Chris Carson, but he brought me to many playoffs. And I know it doesn't really matter if you don't win the championship, but, dude, he was such a locked-in RB1, RB2, that fringe guy. That 10 to 15, 10 to 16, loved Chris Carson for that. But that's that Pete Carroll system, which, is it going to be Rashard Penny? Is it going to be Ken Walker? He doesn't want to be Kenneth Walker anymore, which I think is hysterical. He actually came out and said, don't call me Kenneth. But, okay. But, yeah, dude, I just think you go boom or bust. Listen, I'm actually an advocate. I want to try the 0 RB scale, 0 RB draft this year. I don't know in what of the 10 leagues I'm going to try it in. But I just think there's a lot of people.
That's why you got to play 10 leagues, because you have to have enough leagues for trial and error.
100%. I want to try this out. I have also never had this many wide receivers in my rankings. Like, dude, it's
huge year for wide receivers. I agree. I'm not saying that I would take 0 running, me personally. But what do I know? Just an average guy.
I'll ask you.
Who probably knows more about fantasy football than I do. But I can't take 0 running backs in the first. Like, I have to take at least 1 RB1. I understand maybe taking 1 receiver, 1 RB1, because a lot of people like to go 2 running backs if they have a pick that allows them to. I can't go 0 because I've been bitten by that personally. There was years where I took the receiver because I was like, oh, there's no running back that I'm in love with. So I went one receiver, one running back, and I got fucked.
So I want to ask, okay? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, I got Mixon as RB10. Okay. Do you feel comfortable taking Fournette
As an
as
RB,
an RB1?
no way.
Do you feel comfortable taking James Conner as an RB1?
I don't feel comfortable taking it, but whereas Fournette, I wouldn't put myself in a position where he was the only RB1 to have. If I got two stud receivers and I had to settle for Connor, I would.
That's kind of what I'm saying, man. Like, dude, the RB dead zone isn't much RB dead zone anymore because those wide receivers are rising so much to the top. The RB dead zone, bro, are 10, 15 starting running backs that are going to be good.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think, dude, okay, so if I hammer, like, if I get the 5th, 6th overall pick, the top 3, 4 running backs are gone, Cooper Kupp's gone, I go Justin Jefferson. Dude, now I'm in the second round. I'm like, I got to try to grab a wide receiver. But, like, I don't know, man. Let's say Mike Evans falls to me because Mike Evans on Yahoo is the 23rd best player. Okay? I don't think he's the 23rd best player, but I know now in the 3rd round he's not coming back. And I started my team with Justin Jefferson and Mike Evans. Bro, I'm probably going to, like I said, take a Fournette, a Connor, and, dude, your boy, Breece Hall. I would be very comfortable taking Breece Hall in the 3rd round.
I am, but as a snake-bitten Jets fan, I try to avoid drafting Jets. You know what I mean? Because I try to tell myself when I'm about to draft a Jet and I look at their upside, I try to tell myself, don't do it. They're the Jets, so don't do it. And then it either proves me right or they are a bust, and I'm glad I didn't. It's you know what I mean?
So right now, very interesting.
Game on. Will's a little late to the show. Will, we talked a lot about the Bucs and the Julio situation earlier in the show. Joe, you want to recap in like 10 words, basically your thoughts on Julio to the Bucs?
I think Julio, best case scenario, is going to have 750 and 6 touchdowns, and that is best case scenario. That is him fitting into that Godwin and them not thinking Julio's got any juice left.
But 6 touchdowns, 800 yards added to that offense that didn't have Antonio Brown later on.
I think it was almost 2,500.
I don't think so there. But I think it's still a benefit for them because Antonio Brown wasn't coming back. So adding Julio Jones, even if he's going to be revitalized a little under Brady. So just adding a little from him.
But I think there was 2,500 to 3,000 yards missing and 20-plus touchdowns. So even if Julio only gets that little chunk, there's still a lot to go around to Mike Evans, to the new running back, to Fat Lenny, to, Kyle Rudolph and, Brait. Dude, Tyler Johnson, he's a wide receiver out of Minnesota he went in the 5th round. He's the one that drew the PI to send the Bucs to the NFC Championship. They lost. But it just, I don't know. There's going to be a lot of good players.
But yeah, Will, basically to recap, we talked about that earlier. We're not very high on him, but you don't have to be high on him. If he just gives you more than he gave Tennessee, that's all you have to ask for. With Brady, can he give you more than he gave Tennessee? It's a positive for them.
So, Nick, I actually want to ask you a question because my second Jets player on the board, okay, the wide receiver, rookie, Garrett Wilson, okay? In this area, I have 4 wide receivers all in a row. I have Russell Gage, Drake London, Chris Olave, and Garrett Wilson. Who do you feel the most comfortable with? Now that Russell Gage isn't that number 2 for Tom Brady. That's why he was so high for you.
Yeah, now that Julio's there, I can't on Russell Gage. First of all, Tom loves to spread the ball around. Yeah. So even if Russell Gage was like quote unquote a 2 or 3 once Godwin comes back, now he's a 4 and he's a 4 in an offense that spreads it around a lot. If your name's not Mike Evans, then it's got to be Godwin. And if your name's not Godwin, then I'm sorry, it's Julio now and it's not Russell. Yeah. Russell Gage had so many opportunities. I'm not saying Matt Ryan is Tom Brady, but Russell Gage had so many opportunities in Atlanta to be like, oh, Ridley's out. Oh, Julio's gone. Do something. Like, you don't have to be great. Just, like, do something. And Gage did nothing. Now, Brady makes up aliens. Russell Gage, he's an alien. Like, what are you doing, bro? Can't do it.
So Russell Gage is out. Which rookie wide receiver are you going with? London in Atlanta, Olave, and the W-Eaton Jameis, or you going with your boy, Wilson?
I'm going Olave.
Wilson and Wilson? You don't like that combo?
I do, but I'm going Olave first, Wilson 2, Gage third, maybe.
Okay. Yeah, dude, I really like Olave. I haven't seen
Especially if
many
Michael
videos.
Thomas is playing and Michael Thomas is any form of Michael Thomas. Then you have Olave on the other side. Like Michael Thomas and Olave and Alvin Kamara. Like just because Jameis Winston is not like good quarterback to win
He's
games,
for
he's gonna
5,000
sling
yards.
the ball around to so
5,000.
many.
And dude, you forgot, dude, an LSU born and raised kid went back to his hometown, Jarvis Landry.
We talked. We did a lot of it. Unfortunately for Will, he's bringing up all topics we talked about already. But Will, highly disappointed judge tonight. Yeah, I mean he faced Max Scherzer. Max Scherzer is a pros pro if there ever was one. Still disappointed because you don't want to see a guy get a golden sombrero on strikeouts. But point is, I had a feeling Scherzer was going to deal. I had a feeling that -1.5 wouldn't hit to take the first 5. And yes, to all Mets fans out there, not that Will is a Mets fan or a Yankee fan, he's neither. But to put it out there for you, I'm sorry. If there's another Subway Series and we face off in the World Series, you're gonna have to face Cole, Severino, Cortez, possibly a Castillo or Montas, who is being traded there. You're not gonna get to face Domingo Germán every night, and Stanton will be in our lineup. So, not to hate on the Mets are a fantastic story. They're an amazing team, and they very much could make the World Series, but pump the brakes on what you saw these last 2 games because you got the worst of the Yankees on the field on paper against basically the best of the Mets on field and on the paper.
So as far as a realistic Mets point of view, I would be very happy going to a Subway Series, and I would much rather actually take on the Yankees' top pitchers because I think that would be a much better game.
Of course. You want to see good.
Yes.
If you're a Yankee fan or a Mets fan or whatever team you're a fan of, and you're playing like a random team in a different state that's no rivalry, of course, you just want to see your team go out there and annihilate them. And not that I wouldn't want to see the Yankees annihilate the Mets like they did in 2000 again.
Whoa. The Mets made it interesting. We got to Game 5.
Yeah, they had one win, and that one win took extra innings. Sorry. But my point is, you still want to see like that when it's a rivalry. Like winning in 7 is fun.
Yes. Dude, it's exciting. You get listen, I watched the Mets lose plenty, and I know the last World Series that they were in, they lost to the Kansas City Royals. Dude, it was such a thrilling games to watch. Dude, Harvey, sure, DeGrom was actually pitching. Syndergaard, dude, they had such a good lineup, and just the Royals would wear them down every single game, and it was just so entertaining.
Cespedes couldn't carry the whole team. This year, the Mets have a slightly better lineup, and I'm sure they'll add somebody at the deadline.
Dude, they added the Pittsburgh guy that I was talking about last week.
Vogelbach, who actually had a hit and a walk today. So he got on base a couple times, but a guy who barely bats 200 and supposed to be a power hitter, but only had 12 home runs so far, terrible. Not that they gave up a ton to get him, but why? That wasn't your answer. No. You have an owner who has super deep pockets and other glaring needs in the lineup, not pitching, glaring needs in the lineup. Go out there and trade your assets for Soto.
I wouldn't mind another pitcher because, like you brought up, the Yankees have a very strong 4-man lineup. I would say the Mets have a very strong 2-man, and they have serviceable starters for a game 3, 4.
Yeah, 5. I mean, I agree. I'm not saying that if they have that, if they decided to go get a Castillo or Montas,
yes,
it would be great for them too. But I think that they need a bat more.
Where would you put that bat then?
They need an outfielder.
I don't know, man. Marquez playing well.
They're OP. Okay, so they need a catcher. They should go get Contreras They should get a package to get Contreras and David Robertson. So they get a bullpen arm that's not named Diaz because Diaz has played great, but they really don't have much else besides him. And Diaz, who knows at what point he's going to just be old school Diaz and blow it. So Robertson would be great. And Contreras is one of the best catchers. And I saw a stat that the Mets have, over the last 3 seasons, the lowest OPS of any team from the catcher's position. Their OPS is 511.
Well, do you know who started that 3 years ago? And he's having a great year, and I would love to see the Mets trade for him.
Darno.
They're
not going to trade back for him, though.
Dude, how did he – as a Mets fan, I watched so many games. He was okay as a defensive catcher. He was so bad. as an offensive bat.
He was trying to. He said that. So this is verbatim. I saw a recent interview with Darno, and he said that they were trying to influence him to be a big swing bat because he has pop.
Yeah.
That they were trying to influence him. The batting coaches, the organization was trying to influence him to be like a power home run, swinging catcher when he felt more comfortable being a contact guy. And he said he got with a new batting coach, new hitting instructor, new organization. And he said that helped him pick his spots. And that's why his average is actually pretty good.
Well,
and it helped his, offense and defense correlate.
I think it's so sad because I know that the Mets batting and pitching coach and strength and conditioning coach actually all got fired within the last 2-3 years because, dude, just such bad moves by all of them. Like, all right, so the batting coach. The Mets had one of the worst hitting teams 3 years ago. Okay? Bad batting coach fired. The pitching coach and the strength and conditioning coach had Syndergaard add 20 pounds of muscle in the offseason. Why do you want your number 2 pitcher adding that much weight? It's just, dude, so many moves that they've made before Cohen got there made zero sense, and it hurt the organization so tremendously. Where now, let's say Darno stayed, and they got a different hitting coach. Now you don't have this problem at catching, and maybe they don't make any moves. Maybe they do go after that pitcher, like you were saying, because they don't need that catcher.
I agree. So we're almost at the hour mark. We talked a lot about baseball in the beginning. We talked a little bit more about baseball now, and sandwiched all in the middle was fantasy football. Joe, I want to ask you, before we leave off on picks for tomorrow that we want to preview to end the show, picks that we like, why we like them for tomorrow's slate, is there anything you want to leave on the table now for fantasy football before we close that out that you didn't get to?
I would probably say, as far as a fade, and I know this isn't a popular fade, I'm probably going to continue to fade Derrick Henry for as long as I can.
Reason?
Because when he came back, he looked awful. And when you're 250, 260 plus pounds, and you have a foot injury, that's a pretty tough thing to get over. So, listen,
I can agree.
But listen, he's at end of the first, maybe second round running back. But like I even said,
Sunday night, Will?
Derrick Henry in front of Dalvin McCaffrey, Harris, Jefferson, Chase, Joe Mixon, Kamara. I would feel so much Chubb, Javonte Williams, Aaron Jones, DeAndre Swift. I would feel more comfortable putting those guys in my lineup, knowing that they can get it done, and they don't have, I was about to say lingering health issues, but Christian McCaffrey is a walking health issue. But
Sunday night it is, Will. So I agree with that. So if that's we gave you a lot. Listen, we gave you like a million baseball tip betting strategies. And I'm not saying that to be cocky or to be a know-it-all. Like, go back if you join this late, or if you're one of the people who is going to be watching this back, and you're skipping around to try to find something. Maybe you're more interested in fantasy football. Maybe you're skipping to the end because you just want to see my bets. Go back to the beginning and watch that section on two things. Watch the beginning section on why, all the different things to put into why you bet a certain game rather than just money line, not money line, good team, bad team. Watch that, important. Then go back and watch the beginning of Joe. I know we got on a tangent about certain individual players, but Joe's list and why he faded certain players and why he didn't of that top list and why he thought Yahoo or ESPN was crazy, I would go back and look at that. Those are two key things we spoke about that are big takeaways. If you can't watch a full hour-long video, watch 10 minutes here and there of those before we end on the fantasy football note. But this is we're called the Oddsfathers. We're here for betting.
Give me some odds.
So I have some juicy bets that I love for tomorrow. And two of them are in the same game. All right, so I want to talk about the Philadelphia Phillies playing the lowly Pittsburgh Pirates tomorrow. And an old friend of Joe's, who just so happens to pitch for the Phillies, is starting. A guy named Zach Wheeler. Zach Wheeler.
What a great first-round draft pick, by the way.
Phenomenal pitcher his whole career, had injury issues, had 2.5, almost 3 seasons in a row where he missed due to injury. When he was healthy, he was good, got traded to the Phillies. Great year last year. This year, 2.78 ERA, 1.04 WHIP, which basically means one base runner per inning. And if you're only putting one runner on base, if it's not a home run, you're getting out of the inning with no runs. Hence the low ERA, right? He only has 8 home runs allowed in like 120 innings, which means he goes like a game and a half without letting up a home run. So all of that, and they're playing in Pittsburgh, which is not as hitter-friendly of a ballpark as Philly. If they were at home, that would be a more batter-friendly ballpark. So all those reasons I like that. Now, let's look at the flip side of it. Let's look at who Pittsburgh's trotting out there, right? So Pittsburgh is going to trot out there. Listen, Thompson he had a little bit of success on another team, but as for Thompson on the Pirates right now, terrible, as bad as you can get. In only 75 innings pitched so far, he's allowed 32 walks. That's almost a walk every other inning. So he has no control. He has a 1.44 whip, which means 1.5 base runners an inning. So now you get a double, and that every other inning, that extra base hit that comes in, or walk, stolen base, single, you're getting a base runner in, which is why his ERA is so bad, is ballooned 8.9 ERA. But the huge takeaway for me here, 19 home runs allowed in 75 innings. Joe, we talk about analytics on the show all the time and why the teams that consistently finish the best are the teams that have the most home runs and the most walks. They have the best OPS. Those are the teams that do well, right?
That's why the White Sox suck.
Right, exactly. That's why the White Sox are such a disappointment this year.
Yep.
So 19 home runs in 75 innings, Joe, that means that 1 every 3.5 innings he's letting up a home run.
Boom, quick math.
So, that tells you right there that he's letting up 1 to 2 home runs per game if he pitches a 6-inning game, which is a quote-unquote quality start
per game
in a baseball standpoint. So that going up against Zach Wheeler, I want you to take 2 bets. I want you to take the Phillies. Well, first of all, look at the Phillies money line right now. Open -195. So you don't even have to take -1.5 tomorrow. You can take -1 at cheap enough around -120, -125, whatever it is. And if they win by 1, it pushes. You don't even lose on a -1.5. But if you're going to throw something in a parlay, -190, throw it in a parlay, -195, whatever you find it. But also 4.5 runs over team total. Even if it's -135, -140, -145, they're going to score 5 runs here. When Philly loses games, they lose it because they don't have good pitching. If it's not Wheeler or it's not Nola, or they lose it because their bullpen sucks.
I wanted to bring this up just to help your point. Philly is also in the top half of the league in every batting metric. So going against a pitcher that is going to give up home runs and hits and a great on-base percentage, it's not going to look good if they can get some guys on base and Schwarber comes up and just continues to lead the NL in home runs.
Schwarber, Harper, Didi, Realmuto, they're streaky hitters. But when they're on, they're going to destroy you. So this could be a game where Philly's up 8-0 in the 3rd or 4th inning. So I really like that a lot. Another low-key, sneaky bet that I like is the Angels' first half. They have Ohtani on the mound. So anytime they have Ohtani on the mound, a guy who has a 1.00 whip, only 1 base runner inning, 2.80 ERA, averaging, if he pitches 9 innings, letting up less than 3 runs, and he doesn't walk a lot of guys. That's a pitcher that you want to take, right? Now you say, all right, they've been really struggling. They're 43-66. Trout is still having back issues. First 5 innings. They're still the home team. They're still going to bat the bottom of the 5th. They still have a good pitcher on. And when their bullpen blows or their bats don't hit, you could lose if you take the full money line of Texas, because Texas' offense is actually not bad. But Texas is running out their Spencer Howard, and Spencer Howard is 7.11 ERA, 1.78 whip, almost 2 base runners per inning. He's got 10 home runs allowed and 12 walks allowed and only 25 innings pitched. So every other inning he's letting up a walk and a home run. That's 2 runs every other inning. First 5 Angels.
There we go. I was waiting for it.
So first 5 Angels. Phillies, take a -1. You don't have to take a -1.5. If you want extra juice, you want to throw them in a parlay, you could do so whatever way you want. Money line -1.5. They're not the home team, so -1.5 could hit if they bat a 9th inning and they're up by 2, up by 1.
And also the score that you said, I think they win that -1.5 if they're up 8-3.
Right, exactly. If so that, and then once again the team total over 4.5 honestly, over 5.5. If some of those sites might give you plus money, plus 105 to take them at 5.5 runs, I'd sprinkle a half unit on that.
I like
I'd
it.
sprinkle a little grant on it. But that's all I got in terms of picks for tomorrow. I don't love the slate huge. I'll probably make a video or clip this tomorrow and give out an exact free lock of the day. Five, 3-1 so far in the 9 free picks of the day that we've given out. We were 5-1-1, and I just had a tough day.
Tough.
But we're still up.
Hell yeah.
Joe, closing thoughts. Take it away.
Threw the shirt on because the Pac-12 is dead. Saturdays are for the Sun Devils, so no more Pac-12. Give it another year or two, and I think that actual conference will probably dissolve into the other conferences. So that's it.
If you're a fan of the Mountain West, maybe they grab a few of those teams. If you're the fan of the Big 12, maybe they grab a few of those teams.
Dude,
if you're a fan of the American, maybe they grab a few of those teams.
Yeah, I can't believe that the Pac-12 is actually crumbling the way it is.
Conference realignment is wild, man. Conference USA has basically gone by the wayside. It's become a few FCS teams they had to bring in order to get it to just be enough to have 9, 10 teams to stay, or 8, 9 teams to stay a conference, because 6 of them left to go up to the American, 3 of them left to go what used to be down to the Sun Belt, and now the Sun Belt had took the FCS winning James Madison. They took one other team, I forget, who was another really good school, and 3 of the teams from Conference USA went to the Sun Belt.
Wow.
Including Marshall. So Sunbelt is now better than Conference USA, and 6 teams went to the American, which we know is better than Conference USA. We'll have a whole episode on conference realignment when college football starts.
Yeah, I think it's the Pac-4 now.
Seriously, it's a Pac-4 and the Big 18. Nikki G, Joey Breaks, the Oddsfathers, thank you for coming with us. Thank you for commenting. Thank you for viewing. I think this was our best one yet, and we're only going to get better.
T-Boy, the best one yet.
Hey.
Later, guys.